What is the Polymega? Well, the Polymega is a clone retro video game system, and it's supposed to allow you to play different consoles on your home TV. Now, we've already had these boxes on the market. One of the biggest retro video game systems out there has to be Retron. Retron makes a different line of products that allows you to play retro video games on your home TV through HDMI. Their latest release was the Retron 5, and a lot of people were kind of meh or just okay about the Retron 5. It has some problems with it. Like, for instance, a lot of people didn't like the build quality of the Retron 5. They didn't like the controller it was using. They also didn't like the fact that when you put in your actual carts into the Retron 5 and tried to pull them out, it was a very tight fit. And there was one major flaw with the Retron 5 that a lot of people were dissatisfied about, is the fact that the Retron 5 seemed like it can play every game under the sun, and you can play your physical carts on the actual Retron 5 itself. But in reality, when you actually put in your physical cart into the actual Retron 5 itself, you weren't actually playing from the actual cartridge itself. So it was actually emulating it. So basically what happens is when you put your physical cart into the Retron 5, it would actually rip the actual ROM out of the actual cartridge itself, and then it would actually play them from the system. I think it actually had some kind of Android OS built onto it, or some kind of Linux operating system built onto it, where it would actually emulate the game. So it wasn't playing from actual inside the box. It wasn't playing from actual hardware built on to the Retron 5, which you can actually do if you spend the money and they actually implement it. They can put chips inside that'll actually play it directly from the cart, and it'll pretty much play it like the old systems did back in the day. But Retron decided to play it from emulation. And you know, when you play games from emulation, it's not going to be the greatest experience. There can always be glitching, audio problems, frame rate problems, color problems. The list goes on of problems that can occur when you play games with emulation. And that's one of the biggest reasons why a lot of people did not like the Retron 5. Can you blame them for not liking the Retron 5 just because it emulated games? Yep. Of course, purists out there want to get the most authentic experience they can when they play these old retro games. So that was kind of up in the air. That overall, this system wasn't that great. I think the Retron 5 only cost like $130, $140, somewhere out there. Still not an inexpensive device. Still somewhat of an expensive device, but it didn't really leave too great of a taste in a lot of people's mouths when it came to retro video game systems. But now this company is trying to even make a better box than the actual Retron 5 system itself. They're trying to make a system called Polymega. Now, what is this Polymega? How does it differentiate itself? How does it make itself different from the competition out there? Because let's face it, there are a lot of these retro clone video game systems out there on the market. Well, there's one big key difference the Polymega actually has, and that's something I want to talk about in this video, and it actually caught my eye when I actually saw the Polymega. The biggest difference this has compared to every single other retro clone video game system out there currently is the fact that this thing can actually play CD-based games. Yep. That is actually the case with this, according to them and according to the trailer. It looks like you can play CD-based games, where, as you know, every single other retro clone video game system cannot play CD-based games. Whether you buy the Retron 5 or whether you buy something else, you're not going to be able to play CD-based games unless you actually have the old physical hardware. But Polymega looks like they want to change the game up, and they actually want to allow you to play CD-based games on it. So the base of the actual system has a CD-ROM drive on it, and here's the games that are actually going to be allowed to be played on the actual Polymega itself, on the base unit with the CD-ROM drive. You're going to be able to play PlayStation 1, TurboGrafx CD, Sega CD, and Neo Geo CD. So those are some of the actual CD-based games that you're actually going to be playing on this system. And of course, outside the actual CD-based games, you can still use cartridges on this thing. And here's some of the cartridge-based systems that are also going to work with the Polymega: Genesis, TurboGrafx 16, SNES, NES, and they said there's going to be more to come after that. So there will be more to come after release. So basically how the Polymega works: the Polymega is a clone retro video game system. The base model, or the base of the system when you actually get it, is going to play CD-ROM based retro game systems, and then on top of that, you are going to be able to put these things in it called modules, and modules are going to allow you to actually play this cartridge-based games. So you're going to be switching these cartridge-based systems in and out to play these cartridges, whether it be SNES, NES, Sega Genesis, maybe Game Boy Advance. I can see those being implemented down the line. So those are going to be allowed too. You just can't play them all at the same time because you have these different modules that you have to swap in and out. It's kind of an interesting principle, and I'm also kind of worried how is it going to hold up over time, because if you're switching these modules out maybe every other day or whatnot, I can see it maybe wearing down or not looking too good, so that may actually end up being a problem. And it sucks you can't play every single game in the sun right away. You have to keep switching these modules out. So I'm not really sure how I feel about the whole module concept that Polymega is trying to implement with the Polymega. I'm not too sure about that. I think it's a cool aspect. Maybe it was more convenient for them to do that. Maybe it was cheaper for them to do that. There's a number of reasons why they may wanted to go with a modular design for this thing and have the base station just play CD-based games. There could be a number of reasons. One thing I did notice about the Polymega is when you actually buy these modules for different game systems, whether it be SNES, NES, Sega Genesis, Game Boy Advance, or whatever the case is going to be, I realized one thing. They said that when you actually get these modules, you're actually going to get 5 pre-installed games, and they didn't actually give any details on what these 5 pre-installed games are. Are they going to be like these homebrew type games? Are they going to be these games they made, or what type of games? Are they actually going to be retail physical games, or are they going to be their own games, or whatnot? I'm still really up in the air about that, but they did say you do get 5 pre-installed games automatically when you get these modules with it, and that's something that's kind of interesting to me. And when it comes to the actual hardware itself, it looks like everything that the Polymega is going to do is going to be with physical media. So you will actually have to have the old CDs. You will actually have to have the cartridges to plug into the module. So basically, this is going to be a system for people who are purists and people who pretty much own their whole collection. If you own emulators or emulation and things like that, you're not going to be able to use the Polymega because they're trying to emulate the real aspect of owning the actual cartridges, owning the actual CDs with this actual system. Now, when it comes to some of the accessories and some of the other things you get with these, when you buy the module itself for the cartridges itself to play the cartridge-based systems with the modules, outside of the games that you do get free with those modules, you also do get controllers with them. The controllers I've seen are kind of questionable. I'm not sure, of course, you have to really hold them in your hand, but one of them I seen was a Genesis controller, I think, and then I seen maybe a Super Nintendo controller, and then outside of that I haven't seen any other controller, but they do give you a controller with the actual module itself, so don't worry about that. I looked at the base station on the actual Polymega itself, and what I seen from the Polymega itself, it looked like it did actually have some ports to plug in controllers, and it looks like these aren't proprietary controllers, so it looks like you may be able to actually put in your own controller to the Polymega, and I'm hoping that's actually the case when it comes to the Polymega, because if you can't put your own controllers into the Polymega, that may be a problem, because the included controllers with these modules could be meh, or they could be junk, because that's the biggest problem with these clone retro systems. You buy these things, they work okay, but the problem is the controller does not feel like it did back in the day. It feels a little bit too mushy, or it feels just really wonky. It just feels really bad. I haven't really played any clone systems really, but what I can say is I did own the Ouya. If you remember the Ouya was an indie box that pretty much played indie games. It was I think a Kickstarter gaming indie box, and I had that box, and what I can say is the controller on that system was absolutely utter junk, and that's one thing I did not like about that box. So I'm hoping that the controllers that they include in the box are good, and if they're not good, I'm hoping they allow you to use your own controllers, because that is a make it or break it deal when it comes to these old retro video game systems. One nice thing I did notice about the Polymega is the fact that the Polymega is one system that they said will allow you to actually play any game under the sun, including region-free games. So if you want to buy games from the UK, or if you want to buy games from Japan or any other region, you are going to be able to play region-free games on this actual system. One thing I am kind of worried about the Polymega is the fact that they kind of said when you put your game inside the actual Polymega, it'll install it and play it. If you look at the trailer itself, they did actually show some kind of user interface, and that actually has me worried about the Polymega, because I'm hoping this is not emulation. Even though there can be spot-on emulation, emulation is not always the way to go, and I can't agree with the purist out there, because if you own a big massive game collection, why would you want to emulate it? The whole point is you want to play true to life, and that's why you own a collection, because you want to play it on the real hardware, and you don't want to play it with the emulation bugs, the emulation glitches, and things like that can occur. That's why you buy physical games. You don't buy physical games to want to emulate them. If you're going to do that, you might as well go to the internet and just download different emulators and ROMs that you can play on your computer, on your smartphone, and things like that. So I'm hoping that this thing does actually play the games directly from the hardware itself and not emulating them, but it looks like it might actually emulate them, which might suck just because the wording on the actual trailer said install games and play them. What does that mean? Does that mean that maybe it'll rip them to the thing and you can take out the actual cartridge itself and then play them from the actual system itself? That would actually kind of be an interesting concept. Then again, you're still going to be emulating it, but that might be kind of weird, and maybe that might be a gray area just because you kind of like backing up a game if you can do that. If you can put a cartridge in, take it out, and then still play the game or the CD without actually having that actually installed into the Polymega itself. Overall, the Polymega does look like it's going to have a very bright future, and it does look like it is going to be a promising device, but we've seen so many different retro game systems on the market fail or just not be that good. It does make me worried that the Polymega may not live up to the hype. It looks like this is a dream console. It looks like this is going to be the best retro video game system out there to date. It plays CD-based games. It's also going to play cart-based games. It's going to be region-free. It's going to have just all these different features with it. It looks like this is going to be one of the most promising retro video game systems to date. I did get the pricing for this. They did show it on the trailer, and the pricing of this is $249 for this thing. But here is the catch that you guys may not even know. When I actually went to the Polymega website itself, I tried browsing the Polymega website itself to find this $249 price tag that they're claiming that this Polymega is going to go for at release in early 2019. But here's the catch. The thing is, when I looked on the website, it looks like that thing is actually going more towards closer to $500. Yep, I'm not even exaggerating about that. I wish I was exaggerating about that, but I'm not exaggerating about that. And I tried looking very hard on the website to try to find another price point, but I just could not find another price point with this system itself, and it does suck. Now, I may have misread it, and I may have not looked right enough, but I tried my hardest to look for it, and I may not have found the $249 price tag that they said the base model is going to. If it is going for $500, close to $500, I don't know if that's justifiable, and it better play all these games spot on, and this better be the most amazing box I've ever seen in my life, because if this thing is $500 and it's a complete utter mess, then there's almost no guarantee people are going to trust these retro game consoles ever again, because this looks like this is going to be the most promising one. But at $500, that's just a lot of cash to drop on that. That's the same price as an Xbox One X. Who's going to justify this thing at $500? You better be playing your retro games to death, and you better own every retro game out there. At $500 is just a lot. Hopefully the system is actually $249, and maybe that was just a misprint, or maybe they had it somewhere else on the actual website where you could get this for $249. Even at $249, that's still close to the price of a PS1 base model or an Xbox One base model, or hell, even the Nintendo Switch. You can find used Nintendo Switches for $260, $270, $280, depending on who's trying to get rid of the Nintendo Switch. And if you were to buy one brand new, it would only be $50 more than the $249 asking price that this company is asking for, if you can even find that price tag on their actual website. I'm hoping that is the case, but either way, it's still going to be an expensive box no matter how you look at it. It looks like this is supposed to be a promising device out there. It looks like this is supposed to be the ultimate game box for retro fans. If you're big into retro and you're big into playing those old retro video games, and you may want to look at the Polymega. The Polymega looks promising. We'll have to wait and see in 2019 if this thing is going to deliver, and we don't even know if this thing's actually even coming out, because a lot of the times, you know, these things are announced, then things happen and they don't even get released. Like you look at the new Atari CVS, I think the Atari CVS was supposed to be pre-orderable back in December of 2017, but then that never happened. Now you can actually pre-order the thing, but what took them so long on that? And who knows if you'll ever actually get the system delivered to your house. That's the problem with a lot of these Kickstarter products, or a lot of these indie companies, or these pop-up companies and things like that. You're never guaranteed the product itself, so you may order it, and then months down the road they may say, well, we have to cancel the pre-orders because we never could actually make this dream come true. It costs too much money to develop this thing. Not enough people bought this thing or pre-ordered this thing, so we don't have enough cash to make this thing, so we had to cancel your order. So it would really suck, but this does look very promising, and it does look very interesting. Anyway, guys, this is Wayne from My Tech News, signing out.